ain't no grave can hold my body down. There ain't no grave.
Hi everyone, it's Sharon Livingston of Small Business Diva. And what Small Business Diva is, for those of you who have not tuned in before, is a show which sings the praises of people who have a passion for their work. And talking about passion for their work, today we are going to be interviewing Jay Colantuoni, who is the writer, producer, director of the screenplay and the music for a new vampire rock opera. And I don't know if you noticed, but I've got my little, sort of looks like a cross, just in case, just it's really seven chakra. But so the name of the show is Awaken the Night.
Yes.
And you look a little vampire-ish, you know? I mean, I know that that's part because you are also starring in the play. But tell us about Awaken the Night.
Well, it's a story that I started to write after I actually wrote the album, wrote the music to the album. And I wanted to put together an album cover, but I wanted it to be a little risque, a little different, but not so much like, you know, half-naked women on it. I wanted to have a flair of class to it. So
So getting edgy without nudity.
Correct. Correct. And, you know, so I always think that women dressed nicely is sexier than half-naked women anyway, so... and what it all comes down to
After you're 30, it's better, believe me.
Okay. This is true. So I decided that sex sells. So I wanted to focus on having myself surrounded by 5 beautiful women. So what I did was
And your wife Laura is okay with this?
Laura is okay with it, yeah. Laura, actually, I wanted Laura in it because she looks very gothic and she's a very beautiful lady.
I've met her, she's beautiful.
Thank you. So what I did was I actually, where I work, I gathered up a couple of the girls where I work because I can't afford to pay models and stuff like that. So some of them were actually very gothic looking, and one of them actually really likes the genre. So
how could you not like it? I mean, the whole vampire thing is just, I mean, you know, it's sexy, it's sensual, it's a promise. It's mysterious. It's an adventure.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, and that's the thing. Like, so, you know, these girls that I chose, they said, yeah, I like this idea. This is kind of cool. So we did the photo shoot. I saw the results of the photos, and I said, this is phenomenal. This looks amazing. You know, the photographer that we got, Teresa Nimmer is her name. She was amazing. She did a great job. And so after I saw the photos, I started thinking to myself, going, I don't want to play clubs. I don't want to. I'm too old. I'm 1,000 years old now.
You and Lestat, right?
Exactly, Vampire Lestat. He's the man. But no, I decided that, you know, I would like to turn this into a theatrical production. So what I did was
That's gutsy. That's so. I mean, had you ever written anything before?
No.
Wow.
Yeah, I've been a bar band musician most of my life.
Oh my God.
So I've never really done things like that, anything like that before. So after seeing the photos and realizing, you know, I could probably get away with this. I had a friend of mine. I'll mention his name. He actually helped me write the beginning of the story, which was Matt St. Jean. Great drummer. He's in a band called Vatnet Visca. Just a little plug for Matt's band. Awesome black metal band. I don't know if people are into that stuff, but I think they're really good. And so what I did was I said, hey, Matt, I would like to do this. And he said what you said. He said, wow, this is really gutsy, you know. But his passion is writing. He would love to be a writer. So we got together and had him come over to my apartment a couple of nights, and we started looking at these photos and writing the story. And so what we did was we based the characters in the story around these girls that were in my album shot, and it just started to come to life. You know, so
why vampires? I mean, where does this? You know what? Before you tell me about that, I haven't told you a secret that I have.
Oh.
when
You're really a vampire, Sharon, aren't you?
well, my husband thinks probably. When my husband and I got together, we had been in the same psychoanalytical, we're both psychologists, we were in
Yep.
the same psychoanalytical class together. And we were both all of a sudden free after having been friends. And he kept on having dreams about a vampire named Sharon
Really?
before we got together.
That's intriguing.
So I was his vampire.
That's pretty cool.
And we've talked about this before about what is it about vampires?
Well, like you said before, there's the mystique. There's this. It's almost like a sexuality. Also, it's like there's this. It's very intriguing. It's very sexy. And the whole idea of being able to live forever. The
Right.
stories that I've read over the years and movies I've watched, the vampires in those movies always live forever. They never age. There have been stories written that some vampires do eventually age, which I found very interesting.
Uh-huh.
So I think it's just the whole there's this thing about them too. This kind of charismatic. When in most of these
Hypnotic,
movies, it's
right?
hypnotic. Yeah, the vampire enters the room and everybody focuses on this
Right.
guy or gal.
Right.
I find that very interesting, very intriguing. But I really like the whole thing that man's always been searching for, that fountain of youth, or that other great show that the Highlander, about the guy.
Oh yeah.
He was immortal. He became an immortal. I think that's very intriguing. I think human beings in general would want to know, what if I died and everybody else. I mean, if I lived forever, everybody else died around me, and I was able to live 200 years into the future, what would it be like?
Right.
And I think that's kind of what's interesting about a vampire, other than the gory part of the vampire, that he actually needs blood to survive, So.
And you told me a very cool story when I first met you in the in the computer training class I was taking.
Right.
That's where I first met Jay, and I went, "Oh my God, that sounds like such a great thing for my show." It was just a natural. So, you told me an interesting story about how you got involved with vampires stories very young. Can you?
Yeah. Well, it's funny. I remember my mom's 83 years old now. She's still alive. God bless her. And it's funny. When I was about, I'd say probably around 10 or 11 years old, I got a chance, like most kids, get a chance to stay up late at night. That was my big night that night. And my dad had been working a long shift at work, so he wasn't coming home. And my mother asked me, and I don't know if anybody remembers Creature Double Feature.
Oh,
Channel 56. And my mom asked me, she said, "Hey, you want to stay up and watch this movie I saw when I was a little girl?" And so I was like, yeah, sure. And I had never really heard anything about vampires or Count Dracula or anything like that. And
except for Sesame Street, this is the Count.
The Count, exactly, right?
1, 2, 3.
Yeah, I actually love the Count. He's pretty cool. But so she said, we'll make some popcorn and we'll watch this movie. Well, it was Creature Double Feature. So the first movie that was on was Frankenstein with Boris Karloff. Yeah, the original, right? So we watched that, and that scared the heck out of me. Being at that age, I was just kind of like, okay, this is a little weird,
I kind of like the Peter Boyle version.
Absolutely.
Oh, sweet mystery of life.
Yeah, I actually like Peter Boyle was awesome.
He was a great Frankenstein.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So it was like we're watching this thing, and I still was awake. So it was probably like around I think Creature Double Feature started at like I think 9 or 10 o'clock. So because it scared the heck out of me, I was still awake. So we watched the next movie, and that's what she thought was the only movie that was on, which was Count Dracula with Bela Lugosi. And I saw that, and I was blown away by it. It didn't scare me. It was his whole persona and and the movies. If you watch it today, it's really cheesy, but it's classic.
It's wonderful too.
And it really is, and and that was Bella's best role. He was in a stream of horrible movies after that, but he was amazing in that movie.
His eyes.
Well, it's funny you should mention that. I actually have the digitally remixed version of that movie, and they actually, because of the time period that movie came out, they actually cut some scenes out of that movie. And one of the scenes is when they enter Dracula's lair to basically find out who he is, and they're going to kill him. They're basically going to destroy him. And there's a scene where you see him with his cloak, and you see just his eyes, and they actually put like this white light, and they did it with a mirror on his eyes, and you hear him go, "Good evening," but the camera pulls back, and you see these beautiful women in really like white kind of see-through gowns, and they considered that too risque to put on in the movie theater. So they cut that scene out. Well, they left it in the digitally remastered version. So so when I saw that, I just was fascinated by it. I was Dracula for like maybe 6 Halloweens after that.
And did you put on the Bela Lugosi voice and all that?
Oh yeah, we did the whole white makeup.
To suck your blood.
Yeah, with the real deep widow's peak, and yeah, I did the whole 9 yards, and I loved. There was you could go down to like at the time it was like Woolworths, and buy little packets of vampire blood, and you could put some of that on the corner of your mouth and stuff, and. So I was very into that stuff, at a young age, and I kind of got away from it for a while, and then when I met my wife Laura,
you bit her in the neck, and that was it.
That was it. The taste of blood was back in my mouth, but
I'm looking now because I know Laura's sitting in the
she is actually, yeah. No, it was just I used to call Laura my muse because I got back into rock and roll. My friend. Keith called me up one day, and I was kind of down in the dumps and stuff, and he said, "Hey, why don't you come down to this music store?" And he said, I want to show you something. And he actually bought me a guitar and handed it to me and said, "I bought this for you. I want you to come down and start playing with us, with this band that he had." So I started getting back in it, and then I met Laura, and it just got me back into rock and roll and heavy metal and just where my roots lie. I'd done some things on the Discovery Channel and stuff like that.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Some new age music. I did.
Cool.
The White and Black Rhinoceros. They put my music to it. Another good friend of mine that I worked with on that album called Pangea, Two Worlds. Is with Dave Restivo. I can't leave these names out, Sharon.
No, it's good.
If they see this, they'll be like, "Hey, you didn't mention me, pal."
It's wonderful that you're giving them some air. Sure.
Yeah, so we did an album together, and we said, "Hey, why don't we throw this at the Discovery Channel?" And lo and behold, one of the producers called us up and asked us if it was okay to use a couple of pieces of music off the CD. So
how fantastic!
Yeah, so it was pretty cool.
And then, like, about how long ago did Awaken the Night, the album, start happening?
I started working on the album probably about 2 years ago.
You're kidding?
Yeah.
Just 2 years ago?
Yeah.
Wow, that came into being very quickly.
Yeah, well, I've been dabbling in different genres of music. I'm a big Nine Inch Nails fan, and so I decided, you know what? I love this style of music. I think I'm going to try to mimic it or copy it or try to do something, and I came up with an album called GRC Sub 7
What's
Code
a GRC?
62. That's my real name. It's Gerald Richard Colantuoni is my real name.
Got it.
So that was a great failure on my part because some of the songs are okay, but generally it was pretty bad. So again, my friend Keith said to me, he said, man, he said, why can't you just be who you are? You're a rocker, you played in 80s metal bands, just be who you are. And so I kind of fought that tooth and nail. I kept saying, yeah, but, and the next minute I know, I said, all right, I'll give it a shot. And I wrote the title track from the album, Awaken the Night. And all my friends in work heard it. My friend Keith heard it. And everybody was like, wow, like this is really good. And I was like, really? You know? And it's almost like I found my voice again. I found who I was. And so from then on, that's when I started digging a little deeper back into the vampire thing. And Awaken the Night, the lyrics are really all about, you know, this vampire who was asleep for 1,000 years and wakes up in the 21st century.
Now, how did that happen?
It just did. It's like I took all these movies and all these books that I've read, and I still read them, and I'm on Netflix and I watch these really horrible vampire movies, and I love them. But
yeah, my husband watches any zombie movie. It doesn't matter how good it is. Like, I like vampires, but zombies don't do it for me.
Yeah, I like the mystique of the vampire. The zombie thing is something that I kind of fantasize about, like, what if? You know, if there is a virus that happens. And,
right.
You know, so that's still intriguing to me. But
do you have a survival guide?
I did read the Zombie Survival Guide, yeah. Actually, what's your choice of weapon, Sharon?
Well, you know, I actually haven't read it,
okay.
but I had somebody who worked for me for a while who lived with it, and she had the whole kit.
Oh, really?
I'm not kidding.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I decided to go with an aluminum baseball bat and a katana. So
what's a katana?
It's a large Japanese samurai sword. It's got length. You know, swipe the head right off.
There you go.
But no, I love. I've read Walking Dead. I'm a big comic book fan. So I've read The Walking Dead, and I stopped because it started getting expensive. As I read graphic novels, I can't stand waiting for the next issue to come out. So I just was just like, you know, and it's on TV now, which is really cool. Does your husband watch that? The Walking Dead on I think it's TNT.
I think he does.
Yeah.
I think he does. He said it was awesome. The first season
it's
was
amazing.
Awesome.
It really is. The special effects are great, you know.
So let's take a short break.
Okay.
To, you know, just for some announcements that they might want to make.
Okay.
And we'll be right back.
Cool.
So welcome back, and I'm here with Jay Colantuoni. And could we possibly meet Alistair Darkwater? So Alistair, it's a little scary, but a pleasure to meet you. And so you've been asleep for 1,000 years?
Well, first of all, I'd like to say the pleasure is all mine, Dr. Livingston.
Thank you.
I presume. I've always wanted to say that.
You presume correctly. And what is it like to sleep for 1,000 years?
Well, I don't know. I was asleep, wasn't I?
That's true. Well, and what was it like being you before then? I mean, who are you anyway?
I'm everything that you dream about. I'm everything that you want to be. And if you get close enough, you might take that journey with me.
And do you have people that are journeying with you at this time?
I do. I have a small coven of about 5 women. And I also have a rock and roll band that I put together called Sub 7 and the Undead.
And how do you get, I mean, how does that work? You're a vampire. I mean, how do you get gigs? Do people think you're for real? They think you're really a vampire?
Do you?
I don't know. I've got my cross. I'm a little worried here.
Well, crosses don't really have any effect on me.
Well, I've got superpower.
You know,
Cheerios
I'd like to make
here.
something very, very clear, Sharon. Crosses don't affect me. Stakes through the heart don't affect us. Garlic.
And I forgot to have some for lunch. You love garlic.
But no, I none of that. That's all a lot of wives' tales that a lot of people tend to think that affect a vampire.
Well, what are some of those other misconceptions?
Silver. I love silver.
Well, you're not a werewolf. You're a vampire.
But silver also takes care of vampires, according to some legends.
Is that true?
Yes.
Interesting.
But not me.
How are you different from, there's all these like stories about vampires out that make people feel like comfortable around the concept of vampires, like, the whole Twilight series and True Blood with that Suki Stackhouse, whatever her name is, and
True Blood's very tasty, I think. Twilight. Without...
do you shine in the light?
Let's just say if I could, I'd keep Edward's head in my freezer.
I don't like the actor they chose for that myself, but why?
Well, because I think what they've done to the character of the vampire is made him all happy. I remember waking up at dawn one morning, not to my liking, and I saw this thing called Barney. Dinosaurs aren't purple and happy. If dinosaurs were around when man was around, I think man would be food, just as I think of man as being food.
And how do you get your dinner?
Well, let me ask you, Sharon, how do you think I get my dinner?
I'm not sure. I mean, do you like suckle on your witches or on your coven? Do they provide you, or do you get new recruits, or do you? I mean, like in Twilight, they find like rodents or whatever like that. They take their blood, or
that's disgusting.
Yeah.
Actually, there are a great number of human beings that actually pay in the 21st century to be fed upon.
Really?
And so
what's the value to them?
It's bringing them to the near point of almost a sexual orgasm or ecstasy. You should come.
Well, thank you very much. And do you feed on them till they die, or do you feed on them and keep them going till they produce more blood?
Well, you see, they pay a very high price for that, so we don't want to kill them. Actually, money does help us do what we need to do and get to what we need to get to. So there's a lot of things that we do. We're invited many times to different balls or masquerade balls, if you will. We like to call them blood orgies.
Sounds charming.
And basically, they pay for this, and we don't kill them. If it happens accidentally, oops.
And what's your mission? Do you have a mission?
I'm who I am. I've seen a lot. I don't know if I'll continue to see a lot, but...
How would you die? Or are you dead? You know how they say vampires are dead in the popular mythology. Are you dead or are you alive? Does your heart beat?
Well, the name of my band is Sub 7 and the Undead, so I guess you would have to...
So you're alive?
If I have a heartbeat, yes, I do. If that's what you're asking?
So you have a heartbeat?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And how long do you plan to live? How would you die? How might you die?
Well, if I gave that away, I might be hunted again now, wouldn't I?
That's a good point. That's a good point. Alistair, it's really been a pleasure meeting you, and I'm wondering if I could talk to Jay again. Would that be okay?
Absolutely.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for being on my show.
And again, take me up on that blood orgy offer.
You're welcome.
You might find it very interesting.
Thank you. I'll see if my husband will let me go out.
Bring him.
Okay. So, Jay, are you back?
Yeah, I'm back.
He's a little scary.
Yeah, he's creepy.
He's a little scary. And so, how is Alistair, or Alistair, different than Edward Cullens and Suki Stackhouse, True Blood, and how is he the same as people like the vampire Lestat and all that? Who is he? Tell me a little bit about the development of this character.
I kind of took like a bunch of the characters that I really respect in the genre, and I I love Vampire Lestat only because he is a rock musician. And, you know, I said to myself, I said, you know, if I was to do this vampire thing, you know, what would be the best thing to be? I mean, you know, you could be the president of the United States and be a vampire. Nobody's going to care.
Right.
But then I thought, well, I'm a musician. You know, I always loved, you know, Vampire Lestat because, you know, it's like, you know, what better way? I mean, you could do anything you want, and people are going to think.
And he had passion.
Oh, he definitely had passion. You know, he actually hated being a vampire.
Yeah.
You know, in the beginning, and then he got really maniacal and twisted, and then in the end, he actually gone back to trying to be more human again. So
where's Alistair in all of that?
Well, that's you know, and then there's another vampire that I respected a lot, and that was Dracula, Bela Lugosi's Dracula. He was this kind of, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? He was a classy gentleman. You know what I mean? He comes from royalty. He, you know, I like that. You know, and a lot of the books that I read too, the vampires love material. They're very materialistic.
Right.
You know, so they love nice clothes. They like being around beautiful women, beautiful men as well. You know, vampires are bordering that bisexual thing. You know, it's very interesting. My character's not at all bisexual.
I'm glad you assured me of that. Maybe I will bring my husband after all.
There you go. I'll let Alistair know that.
Okay.
But no, seriously, so I took all of that and I kind of put it into one grouping, and I love the idea of my character being a rock musician. He loves the nightlife, obviously. You know, he loves that you know, gothic metal is a very it's when I believe, and I've heard other people describe it as, you know, you took this hard rock sound and merged it with classical music, because classical music and the heavy metal musician aren't too far behind one another. They're a great blend, and there's some great bands out there that do that. You know, in my band I have a violinist. Carla is amazing. She plays with the BSO. She just played with Peter Gabriel.
Wow.
You know, so she's a very talented lady, and she's actually chosen to play these shows.
Fabulous.
So I mean, you know, and the guys that I play with too, the other guys in the band, they just find it intriguing as well. You know, they're in a band called Sub 7 and the Undead. You know. And
so Alistair is sort of, he has a heritage of Lestat. He has a heritage of Bela Lugosi Dracula.
Yeah.
There are any other things he has, and what does he not have?
Well, you know, my wife and I watched this show called The Vampire Diaries, and there's a character on The Vampire Diaries. His name is Damon, and he's just this devious little character. He's he's very good looking, and he's very maniacal, but yet he's got this soft side to him, this human side that he lets out. So again, I kind of gravitated towards all of those characters and created Alistair Darkwater, because in the beginning of the story, Alistair really doesn't like being a vampire. He's blown away by it. He's like, you know, how could this have happened to me? You know, so I mean.
And then he embraces who he is.
He fights it for a while, and again. You know, feeding on small animals and things like that, and didn't want to take human life. And, you know, finally it came to the point where, you know, that's what he had to do to survive. And when you come to the show, Sharon, and you see at the ending of the show, you get to see how Alistair is transformed into this just beast, this monster. And one of the songs on the album is called The Monster I Am. And he really enjoys being a vampire at that point. And that is the end of the show, but you get to see how it takes place. And
it sounds really cool. And isn't there something about embracing the shadow of ourselves.
Oh, I believe, yeah, absolutely. You know, it's funny you should ask me that, because I tried so hard at a point in my life to stay away from the dark side, you know, and I think everybody has a dark side to them. Everybody does.
It's part of being human.
It is, absolutely.
Because
And
we're animals.
we are.
Right.
We really are.
Right.
You know, we're primates, basically. My dad used to say we're educated apes with car keys. I kind of like that. So, you know, and so
Some just have better keys than others.
and better cars. But no, seriously, I started to go back to what I was intrigued about this subject when I was a child, and I found myself again. And it, you know, a lot of people associate the dark side with you know, evil.
Right.
Well, there is part of that, but I think who we are, you know, there's this kind of character inside of us that we have a dark sense of humor about things, you know.
It's something you can explore. It's an opportunity to get to know yourself better, and maybe something interesting might come out of that.
Yeah, I totally believe that. You know, my friend John used to say to me when I was going through a lot of change in my life, and John used to say, Jay, look outside the box. There's a whole world out there, man, you know, and I'd be like, what are you talking about? You know, and you know, and when I finally did, I did. It opened up a whole world for me, you know, and I started to embrace things. You know, I work with this guy, Joe. He's from New York, and Joe's got a very cool sense of humor, you know.
I know Joe.
So we were talking one time, and he said the difference between Bostonians and New Yorkers is if you're walking down the street, and, you know, in Boston, and somebody trips and falls, you know, like, oh, hey, you okay, you know? He says in New York, we have a very dark sense of humor, you know. If we see somebody slip on the ice, he said, we'll stand around and laugh for a good 10 minutes. Look at that guy, you know, and
He was from a different part of town than I was. That's what all I have to say.
well, he's from Brooklyn, so
right.
yeah.
I was from Queens. We were more civil.
Really?
Yeah.
That's interesting. So I just, you know, I just thought that was kind of, and again, there's that dark sense of humor, you know what I mean? And I think everybody has that. And in my show, there's gonna be some dark humor, you know, to lighten things up just a little bit, and that's kind of an oxymoron.
I like it.
But it's kind of, you know,
I
mean,
like it. It's
that's
clever.
where we live as people, you know.
And if somebody wants to read the book, or if somebody, I mean, I don't know if you do that or not, but if they want to listen to the music or buy the album, how do they do that?
You can go to sub7andtheundead.com.
Sub number 7?
The number 7.
And the undead.com.
There's all over it. The website was just redesigned, and all over it. If you click on Awaken the Night, it'll bring you to the story, to the characters. You get to see who the characters are, how they developed, and you get to read the whole story in a. I like to call it a synopsis, but it's a little bit longer than that. It kind of gives you an idea of what's going to happen. So.
Well, I really look forward to seeing it,
Cool.
and I want to thank you so much for
My
taking
pleasure.
part in my show. So once again, thank you for watching Small Business Diva, and next time we'll have some other interesting character to meet, I hope. And thank you.
Thank you, Sharon.
Thanks, Jay.
As I slept for 1,000 years, waiting for your